The trick is you've got two pieces that connect. Then at least you have a place to start.
Hello, out of towners. I am here with some Fromville tea that will have you going back to the beginning and rewatching with a fresh set of eyes. Now, after this video, I don't want to hear anything else about the writers not having a worthy ending or that they don't know what they're doing, because the writing has been intentional and highly impressive. But before we get into it, this video may contain spoilers if you haven't finished Season 3. Season 3 concludes with the revelation that Tabitha and Jade have been here before. In fact, several times before, in which Tabitha says they tried time and time again to save the children. In her recollection, she said her and Jade had a daughter who was one of the children they tried to save. This made me look closer at Jade and Jim's characters, and the first thing I noticed is they have similar physical features. When you look at these men side by side, you notice the thick, curly, dark hair, which Jade ends up growing out, and the beards or shadows and mustaches that both men have. Some other clues to note are Jade's best friend since grade school is named Toby, which is sort of the male version of Tabby. Throughout most of the series, we see Jade wearing a shirt full of tabby cats, which is quite a remarkable clue from the show's creators. Then, of course, there is the hand-woven bracelets that Jade wears, which are similar to the kind Tabitha has been making for her husbands throughout her lifetimes. Somehow, Jade is a fan of wearing these, and Toby has them on as well. All of this made me wonder about the other parallels Jade and Jim have, and these details have made me even more obsessed with the show. Jade and Jim not only have similar features, but they also have similar careers. Both are engineers, with Jim being a mechanical engineer who builds theme park attractions, and Jade being a software engineer who has designed a quantum computer worth millions. Both men are similar in personality, in which they both can be jerks. Jim just comes off wrong to people. He's the kind of person who is adamant about protecting his family, but he doesn't care about tact or grace. When they first come into the town, he interrupts a funeral to ask for directions, something that both Tabitha and Julie express concern about, but he does it anyway. Then later in the RV, Boyd tells Jim that he wasn't going to open the doors to let those things in, and Jim disregards Boyd and gets up determined to open the door, even after Boyd explained to him that the woods are not safe after dark. Boyd ends up restraining him to prevent Jim from getting everyone killed. Similarly, when Jade is convinced that the whole town is some production paid for by Toby, he starts to explore the town looking for clues. Even after having a vision of the man crushed by the boulder who disappears right before his eyes, he is still adamant that even that was staged. He interrupts the choosing ceremony while Frank is making his goodbye speech with laughter and applause, which causes Boyd to restrain him just like he had to do Jim. Over the series, Jim builds up a reputation for being rough around the edges and more of a physical threat, whereas Jade is also rough around the edges, but from a verbal aspect, constantly belittling and demeaning people he finds beneath him in intellect, which is nearly everyone. Both men are consumed with their ideas of how to get home. Jim begins with having his family write questions on the wall in an effort to figure out what is missing. At that very same time, Jade is talking to Tom at the bar about paradoxes. Both men are brainstorming at the same time. Jim's question is, where are we? And Jade's question is, how do we get home? The next thing they both do is start exploring the mystery of the wiring. Jim investigates the cords in his house, and Jade is going around pulling wires from cars because he has an idea on how to get the radio working. After barging into their house, Jade says to Jim, "Oh, you noticed the wire thing too." He knows Jim doesn't care for him, but Jade respects the fact that Jim is an engineer and he needs him to help him with the radio. Jade is constantly barging into the Matthews home as if he feels entitled to do so. He never apologizes because he feels justified because he has something important to say. Both men are literally the same way. They only care about what they have going on, even if that means, for Jim, neglecting his children, which Julie points out, and for Jade, drinking himself into a stupor. After the scene of Jim writing on the wall in his home, the next scene is Kenny barging into Jade's room and finding Jade writing on the book that he's reading. He takes the book away, and Jade says, "Do you want me to write on the wall like a psychopath?" Then later, Jim calls Jade a psycho for running off while they were trying to place the antenna in the tree. Both men experience supernatural events. As Jade becomes obsessed with the symbol, he starts to see other things like the Civil War soldier, Christopher and Jasper, the children when he goes into the cave, and he sees the pioneer man. He also sees and talks to Tom, although this could be his conscience talking to him, or the entity, we don't yet know. He is further plagued by the bottle tree and trying to figure out what the numbers mean. He is so obsessed that it becomes all he cares about. When he goes to the settlement to help gather food, he doesn't actually help. He only sits there drawing images of the totems. Later, when Boyd rings the bell to gather a search party for Fatima, Jay doesn't respond, nor could he care about what that bell could mean. Instead, he's busy creating his own bottle tree. While Jade is seeing images of the past, Jim is being taunted by the entity. It calls him on the phone claiming to be his dead son Thomas, which is in itself cruel, not the sign of something that wants to help you. Then there's the static he hears on the radio, giving him hope to push forward with the tower. Then there is a voice on the radio that tells him that his wife shouldn't be digging the hole. The entity collapses an entire house on him. It had already collapsed the main floor dining room in order to cover Tabitha's hole, but when Jim starts trying to remove the furniture to find Tabitha, it brings down the entire house on him. Then later, it calls him claiming to be Thomas on the radio in the RV just to laugh at him. It's as if it knows he doesn't belong here and is affording him no peace. Both men get aggressive with Victor. Jim gets overly aggressive with Victor at the diner, which is kind of understandable. However, Ethan cries out to him in disbelief, but Jim continues to shove Victor out of the diner. Jade later does a similar thing when he finds out Victor withheld information about the symbol. Again, Ethan cries out in disbelief and begs him to stop. Both men have a connection to music. Jade plays the violin, and Jim's mother was a music teacher. It is Jim who tells Jade about the note scale having 12 notes, as he jokingly predicted earlier when Tabitha asks him if he'd figured things out after studying his brainstorming wall. In the last episode of Season 3, Jim and Jade are wearing the same colors in reverse. Jim has on a green jacket and blue sweater, and Jade has on a green sweater and blue jacket. It's amazing how the writers placed the parallels of these two characters right under our noses, and of all the things we did notice about the show, this was not one of them. It shows just how intentional everything was from the very beginning. Let me know in the comments if you caught any of these parallels early on. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel as more theories, Easter eggs, and revelations are on the way.